if you take responsibility and control over your rehab versus blaming others for your injury, like those types of mental approaches are going to drastically change your outcomes.
Welcome to the Movement Driven Podcast with Dr. Greg Goldberger, where we help you bridge the gap between pain and performance. Each week, we'll share strategies, insights, and real-life applications to help you keep moving and stay driven. Now, let's get into this week's episode of the Movement Driven Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Movement Driven Podcast. I'm your host, Tara Sweat, and we're here with Dr. Greg Goldberger. Greg, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Tara?
I'm doing good. And I feel just so mentally awesome today. And I think it's because we are going to be talking about mind over movement and some of the mental health benefits of physical therapy, how that mind and physical really go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that people usually think of PT as helping the body. But again, we're going to talk about how it helps the mind too. So, Dr. Greg, can you explain why movement is medicine, not just for physical health, but for our mental health as well?
Oh man, where do I start? So like, I think like what you were just saying, like the term like mind over matter, I think comes into play here. Like that's something that people always say, but like, what does that really mean? Right? Like, I think the mind has a tremendous impact on how we feel and how we move and how we live. And this is something that as I'm getting older, I'm learning more. And as I'm a father, I'm definitely learning like our mood and how we approach things can drastically change everything. And that's just what I believe. You can agree to disagree. But in terms of the physical therapy world, how you approach an injury, whether it's from an optimistic, glass half full standpoint or super pessimistic about it, or if you take responsibility and control over your rehab versus blaming others for your injury, like those types of mental approaches are going to drastically change your outcomes. And then we talk about rehab, you know, you mentioned this too, like we think about the physical, but the mental is so important. Like there's definitely been several patients in my career, probably I need 2 or 3 hands to count them on, where I've spent numerous sessions where we don't really do much anything than talk. And it feels like I'm more of a psychotherapist than a physical therapist. But we talk about pain and we talk about how the body is perceiving pain and what that really means and what your injury means and how pain is multifactorial. And like sometimes it's an absolute necessary session to unblock some of what's causing people to getting out of pain and getting over certain humps. And that mental clarity or that mental understanding and that mental relief, emotional relief, allows them to feel physically better almost instantaneously, but definitely has an impact on their rehab going forward. So I think like any physical therapist that isn't studying a little bit about pain and isn't having these conversations with their patients is doing a tremendous disservice to them. I'm very lucky that like at UM, when I did a residency postgraduate school, it was one of the pillars that we talked about. And so it's something I definitely carry forward. And so like when we talk about mental health, we talk about the physical manifestations of that, like, oh man, you can go into that for days for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I know just from a personal experience with it, my girlfriends and I do run club pretty much every Friday. And a lot of the times we joke about how it's really yap and run instead of just like running. So, you know, we'll keep our pace steady. We're still running, 9:45, 10-minute miles, and running up to 3 or 4 miles. And, but the whole time we're just kind of talking, and it could be a vent sesh, or it could just be like talking through something. And sometimes like you can go into the conversation really upset about something, whether it's boyfriend, husband, fiance, whatever, and you're talking about it. And then by the end of the run, you're like, wow, it just doesn't feel like I'm that upset about it anymore, because I just got to get it off my chest and off my heart while I was physically moving, instead of just like a vent session on the couch. So it's definitely, I see it in manifesting physically when I do that with my girlfriends as well.
Well, and to your point, it kind of goes both ways, right? So like your mental approach is going to change how you physically feel. And then just kind of saying, F the BS and just moving is going to change how you mentally feel. And so then we could talk about, all the hormonal release and all that kind of stuff that comes with exercise, because that's essentially what you're feeling, right? We all know endorphin release and decrease in cortisol and things like that. So like you're going to feel dramatically better after exercise.
For sure. Well, it's like the infamous Elle Wood said, exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy, and happy people don't kill their husbands.
There you go. And no, that's solid logic. It's solid logic.
So when we move into talking about,
Should have that written on my wall somewhere at home, right? My wife's mirror in the morning.
Yeah.
So she could see that.
Happy wife, happy life. It's you have to do, baby. You just gotta exercise.
That's fine.
But we were talking about, hormones and stress and everything else. I think cortisol is a big buzzword that, people want to throw around there, especially in the TikTok space. They're like, oh, lower your cortisol with this drainage or with this drink or with this.
Right.
But, it's often called the stress hormone. And there is actually good benefits to it. Like you want to have cortisol. Like you don't want to just completely not have it at all. Yeah. Right. So how does movement actually help reduce stress hormones and calm the nervous systems when you're putting yourself in a stressful state of running, of working out, of going for a power walk and things like that? How does that they almost sound contradicting, but they're not. How does that work?
Well, I think like in exercise, you're training your short-term cortisol, right? Like you're training your fight or flight, which is absolutely necessary part of cortisol. You want a spike in that to respond to a certain situation, especially an emergency. And so when you're exercising, that's kind of a short-term effect, in my opinion. And so you're getting the right type and right amount of cortisol released in the right way for the right purposes. But like when you're like cortisol is a stress hormone, right? Like, so that's why we all, oh my God, cortisol. So like when it's like constantly chronically high, then we have poor sleep, we have anxiety, our immune system starts to be, down and dysfunctioning. And then we have more sensitivity to pain too. Like cortisol itself is also is a pro-inflammatory. So when you have this chronic underlying cortisol release, it's going to increase the inflammation. And if you have these underlying issues or you have these underlying immune dysfunctions or what have you, then all of these things are going to be heightened. So then your threshold for pain is decreased. It takes less to cross that threshold. Therefore, I'm in pain more often, or it takes less for me to get into my pain. And then ensues the domino effect there also. So like, I think we need the healthy amounts, but we can't forget, like as much as we're releasing certain amounts of cortisol when we're stressing the body, because it's a stress hormone, when we're exercising, we're also releasing endorphins, right? Like dopamine, serotonin are also these buzzwords. Like we all have these dopamine addictions scrolling on our phones or whatever, all these little things that we're so like addicted to these days. And so, but again, dopamine is a good thing if used and released by the body in the right way, in the right time. And so exercise, you're going to feel good because of the endorphins release. That's your feel good chemical. That's going to reduce your perception of pain. So now your threshold's back up, right? So now it takes even more to cross that threshold. You're going to have just a better mood from endorphins. And so then like your dopamine, serotonin, serotonin's going to lead to better sleep, right? And then that's better healing and better recovery. Your dopamine is your antidepressant type of thing. And so in spikes, you're going to get addicted to that, but in low dosages over time, that's just what happiness is, right? So like, and then like we talked about before, so now if my mood and my disposition is better and my optimism is higher, then that's going to then key back into how all of these systems are feeling, and we get the snowball moving in the right direction rather than the wrong one.
Right.
So that's what a lot of that, I think a lot of the rehab is like, we have to I tell my patients all the time, it's like, we're trying to solve the puzzle. We have to address one piece at a time, and we have to address all the pieces. Sleep has to get better. Nutrition has to get better. Exercise has to get better. The mental approach has to get better. The emotion has to get better. All of these things have to get better, and one can't get better all the way before you touch the other. Like you have to I'm going to work on this a little bit and work on that one a little, and then over here. And then eventually you climb yourself out of that hole and you're feeling good. And that's what we're trying to preach here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that there's, chronic stress and sedentary lifestyles increase that pro-inflammatory makers in the body or cortisol and things like that. And so exercise will help decrease that. And this means less systematic inflammation, which is less risk for depression, chronic pain, and even degenerative diseases. So how does PT play into that role of just whether, what we're talking globally here, but let's just talk patient by patient
Right.
for the sake of conversation. How does PT play into that?
Well, I think just in general, like once you're in this cycle, like we just talked about that snowball effect, like when I'm encountering people, they're in the opposite side of that. They're in a cycle downward, right? Like they don't know how to address any of these one things. And so they're in this chronic stress, inflammation cycle. And so sometimes you need somebody to help you out of that. And that's where I think a PT and especially the performance PT world where we have time for these conversations of like, okay, what's your diet like? What's your sleep like? What can we do to strategize to get these things better? Right? Like,
Mhm.
are you watching TV right before bed? Are you having blue light shining in your face? Well, then your sleep's disrupted. If you're not eating, then then your sleep might be disrupted. If you're not exercising, your sleep might be disrupted. Okay. So let's just try to get sleep better today, right? What can we do to get your sleep better? Are you worried about like, even though I'm not necessarily in that lane of that's not my expertise all the time, sometimes it just helps to have somebody be like, let's take like a rational, logical step back here and like look at this from a different approach rather than the emotional state that you're in because everything hurts and you're worried and you're scared and you don't know and you're not sleeping because it hurts and like you can go haywire with the thoughts, right?
Right.
And so I think at least in movement driven, we try to like, hey, let's just breathe. Let's look at this rationally and let's just start attacking it and let's create a game plan and let's be actionable rather than worry about it. And like, just as I'm talking, basically we're changing the mindset. We're changing the mindset.
Right.
Let's not worry about what has happened. Let's look forward and what we can do and what's in our control and all the cliches, but they come into fruition. They're absolutely necessary in this standpoint. And so, like somebody like a PT that has enough knowledge base and understanding of what you're going through outside of that your knee hurts or outside of that this hurt, it's a deeper situation. And so we have to address it from every standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just as simple as, let's just say maybe it's a high school kid, who's it's their senior year
Mm-hmm.
and, they're eligible to possibly play for a college. It doesn't have to be a big one, but if they've got an opportunity for a scholarship to play, for a college team and, their senior night, they're excited, they're amped up and they get tackled really badly or they get, slide tackled, played soccer, or maybe they take a baseball, to the hip really bad. That, is something that you can work through physically, but the mental weight of that for that
Oh
hit,
yeah.
is gonna, it could go one direction or the other.
It's going to go whichever. Yeah. And where does it start? It starts with the mental approach. And you hear that from the high level athletes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you talk about the goats, if you will, of all time, they're all a little crazy, right? They're all crazy in the head. And I mean that in a complimentary way. Like you have to have this mental approach that's different from everybody else to be able to go succeed in whatever field it is. And you can take that same thing to the rehab. Like, why not? It's the same as anything else in life. And you see athletes, you hear about it in the media when you're watching your favorite sports teams, like, oh, they attacked rehab this often. Like, they attacked rehab. That's something I've heard lately. What do you mean they attacked rehab? Well, that's how they do everything. They're that kind of person. They had this mindset that I'm going to get better. I'm going to come out of this stronger. I'm going to get the blah, 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 blah. Instead of, oh my God, I'm injured. This is going to affect my draft stock. I'm not going to get blah, blah, blah. That's going to drastically affect how you approach every day, but then affect the physical feeling of how you feel every day, both physically and emotionally. And so like, yeah, I can't overstate it enough for sure.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about some practical takeaways for patients. What would you say to somebody who, is kind of listening and they're dealing with some emotional things as well as their physical things. They're maybe in a rut and they need to figure out how to get out of it. What are some practical takeaways that you would share with someone?
It's a good question. I would say start simple. Like, keep it simple. Stupid is typically something I say. Like, you don't need extreme workouts. You don't need to go crazy hour-long CrossFit. Like, just go for a walk and then be consistent. And then that walk, that's 15 minutes, turns into 20 minutes, turns into a little more brisk, turns into a walk-run 30-second interval, turns into I'm going to cycle with my buddies or whatever it is. Like, start small and build. And I think I just touched on, I think consistency is another key takeaway. Like, you just got to find something that you can stick to and just get the sneakers on in the morning and go for that walk. Like, once the sneakers on, you're not going to take them off. So just make your goal, like, get the sneakers on. That's your goal. It's not to take the walk. It's to get the sneakers on and then go. And things will just start to fall in line. And then the last thing I'll say is, like, if you're somebody that's actually dealing with like a specific joint issue or a specific injury that you're trying to overcome and you're wondering, like, how do I approach this? That's where you need the expert. And so the practical takeaway is call the expert, call us, and let's help you get through that issue. Like, if you have a plumbing issue in your house, you're going to call the plumber. Call us. We can help you through this. So let us know if you need our help for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Greg. I think this was an awesome episode. I, for one, just personally love talking about mental health and also physical, tying into that as well. Just super passionate about that in my own life. And then just like what I like to share when I'm coaching or just when I'm talking to somebody about it. So I'll definitely be bringing this to my run club sessions for sure.
Love it. I love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's a great episode, and we'll go ahead and wrap up here, but we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys next time.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Movement Driven Podcast with Dr. Greg Goldberger. Want to see how we're helping people in Jacksonville bridge the gap between pain and performance? Head on over to movementdriven.com. Until next time, keep moving, stay driven.